I'm a big believer in acting on impulse, that almost always the first impulsive idea is the right one. The biggest design challenge with Tom Sawyer was figuring out what to do for the cave. We had to keep the dramatic tension going by seamlessly dissolving from the frantic adults above to the terrified children below. So we constructed a bridge which flies up and down. And the adults are in a corridor of light, and that's what creates the illusion that they're outside.
42nd Street is set in 1933. The challenge was to evoke the period, but bring the production values up to the 21st century. The source of the material for 42nd Street is the Busby Berkeley film. One of his stylistic signatures was the overhead camera shot. We asked ourselves, how can we evoke that? And the obvious answer we came up with was a big tilting mirror.
This is the most complex play I've ever had to design. You're dealing with a man who's dead. He's looking back at his life. You go from the River Styx, which is the mythical river in the underworld, to the world of Oxford University around the turn of the century. At that point, Tom Stoppard includes these rather kind of pompous individuals who are all kind of in their own little ivory towers. Tom is slightly satirizing their obsessions, and as a designer, I'm literally satirizing them with a piece of scenery.
With the producers, there is a very specific need for a kind of reality to make a real set in which comedy can play. The set with special construction and special design. In a way, it's an apparatus for comedy. There are a lot of locations in this script. So my big problem was to get the scenery on and off in a seamless enough manner. If you go backstage at intermission, you see that the first act goes up in the air, literally 6 stories high. And the second act comes down. The Producers is a kind of Broadway myth. It reminds you in a kind of nostalgic way of something that was that may not be anymore. We wanted to try and get some of that quality and put it on the stage.
We use light to evoke memory.
Jane Eyre is telling her story in the first person. And the imagery surrounding her is pieces of her memory.
And those images were full-color projections.
So what you get the effect of is imagery that floated through the space.
And that allowed you to get into the characters' minds and what they were thinking.
The musical form gives the lighting designer complete freedom to make things larger than life, happier than they really are. And 42nd Street, more than anything else, is a musical about being happy. Through the lighting, we actually make you feel that nothing could possibly be wrong with the world.
I love the theater, and I love storytelling, and my medium just happens to be light. With Tom Sawyer, the play basically takes place outside, so I took all of my ideas from nature. I think the biggest challenge was transforming this hill landscape into an eerier, darker space. The graveyard scene, for instance, dark colors, moonlight streaming through trees. It's a very shocking, frightening environment. Like a sculptor uses a knife or a chisel, I use beams of light to carve out the blackness, hopefully revealing something beautiful or helping to tell the story.
As a lighting designer, I try to present the wide range of emotions that can happen on stage. Dark drama and great seriousness and deeply rooted emotion.
I want that money!
Of course, the producers is none of that. With Mel Brooks, he sets the rules and then he breaks the rules. And I felt a little bit like I had to sort of do some of that with the lighting as well, in a way that's, you know, a surprise. The lighting is sort of like the little key that opens the door to a fantasy sequence. Lighting is probably the most direct, fluid way to represent emotion, reality, or fantasy.
The classes that you take to become a costume designer really should be all psychology classes. How one person gets inside the psyche of this character to become another person. How can the fabric, the way it feels, help them? How can the colors help them? And more importantly, how can we lift and separate the cleavage? When one has grown up with the only desire on earth to create the perfect, most glorious chorus girl costumes, this is Va-Va-Va-Boom land.
In Rocky Horror, I was allowed total freedom to create a world that had no boundaries. Tom Hewitt, who's this real guy, we needed to push him as much as we could into a sexual arena that would have a little bit of danger.
"42nd Street," I think, is the quintessential Broadway musical because it's about the mythical dream of the chorus girl becoming a star. I did make a rule about how I was going to approach it. For the so-called reality part, the costumes are very soft colours, all very pastel. And then when we hit the show, within the show, I would try and always do it beaded or sparkly.
Young and beautiful days.
I'm a dancer in the Ensemble of Follies, and I dance in about 6 numbers throughout the show. The first character that I play is a ghost, and Theoni designed these lovely costumes. The lights can shine through them so that you do sort of just step out of the wall.
4, 5, 6, 7. Can you get there by 8?
When you're in rehearsal clothes,
7 and 1.
you're sort of still Roxanne, just standing there dancing. But when you finally put the costume on, it really does make you become that person. It's not me dancing. It's that chorus girl from the 30s.